Okay, I'm Sarah Blau, and I'm doing my screencast extra credit project on Nocturne Opus 48, number 1 in C minor by Chopin. Chopin's my favorite composer, so I knew I wanted to write it on this one because this is my favorite song by him. So when it wasn't on the listening list, I was actually kind of happy. But the score starts out really simple. On this top part right here, you see it has kind of one line of melody on our top hand, and then the bottom hand is pretty dense, but not terrible. And then down here, this is towards the end. You can see measure 68 and there's 77. So this is towards the very end. They're stacking 6, 7, 8 notes on top of each other, which makes it really dense, adding sharps, flats, naturals, just to add to the dissonance and resolve of the piece. The background of this piece is this set of nocturnes. So there's two in the Opus 48. There's two nocturnes, and they're both dedicated to Mademoiselle Laure de Prairie. I don't really know how to pronounce that. But the first of the two, which is the one I'm presenting on, is said by many people to be one of the most emotional pieces that Chopin ever wrote. And it's in C minor, which means it's minor. Big surprise there. But there's this guy named Theodor Kullak, and he was a German pianist and composer. And he said that the design and poetic contents of this nocturne make it the most important one that Chopin created. The chief subject is a masterly expression of great, powerful grief. Some interesting facts is we talked about in class how Beethoven was seen as like the first guy to really put a psychological story, like victory over defeat kind of mentality into his music, but a lot of people believe that Chopin actually did it first with this nocturne, but in the end, he doesn't come out victorious. It ends pretty sad, which is kind of sad, but I like it better that way. But a lot of people think that this song is kind of about an unrequited love, so like loving someone and them not loving you back, which is really interesting because Chopin could have been the first one to do this. We don't really know a ton about this piece, but because this piece isn't super popular, many people overlook it. The form is mostly ternary, so I saw some people say it was sonata allegro, but it really doesn't fit that as well. It's mostly just ternary. So it has like your first theme, which is about 2 minutes long, your second theme, which ends up being in a major key, the key of C, and then you have your last theme, which goes back to the same C minor key, and it's the same as the first, but it's varied. So and Chopin kind of goes off at the end and goes crazy, and it's so good, but we're going to talk about that in a sec. So this is the first theme, so it's in C minor, it sounds minor, another surprise, shocker, and has like a heartbreaking tone, like it sounds so sad, but it's in common time, so there are 4 counts per measure, and the quarter note gets 1 count, so it's 4/4 time, and then it's homophonic with an overarching melody, and then chords are structured underneath it. So we're going to listen to a little glimpse of it, of the first theme, right here. It'll load, okay. So that's kind of the first part of the theme. And then the second, let's see if I can present this. Then it goes off, and there's more to the first theme, but I'm not going to listen to the whole thing because it's pretty long. But there's not a super long transition in between the first theme and the second theme, which is why I don't think it's sonata allegro form. I think it's more, sonata allegro form wasn't even really a thing when this was composed, but some people like to say it was. But this is why I don't think it's sonata allegro form, is there's like zero transition. It jumps right into the second theme, which is different, but it's also really cool how Chopin integrates the major to minor switch. So we're gonna go watch that as well. So you can hear that switch into the major key, which was brilliant because it doesn't sound like so out of the blue. Like it hits the major chord and you're like, oh, that's a change, but it's not like, oh, is this a different song? Which is really cool that Chopin did that. Okay, then we get in the second theme, which is not super different, like texture-wise. It's the same density, it's homophonic, has a similar tempo. I'd say the second theme has a slower tempo, but not crazy slower. It's not like grave, but it's in common timing, so 4/4, and then it even still has the same center pitch at C, but it's in C major and not C minor, and it has a different melody, so it sounds different enough, but you can still tell it's kind of in the same song. And the bass clef plays like almost the entire theme in different arpeggios, which is really cool. So we're going to listen to about 20 seconds of the second theme. Okay. Here. So there's a little bit of the second theme, and then we're going to listen to the transition really quick, which I think is like brilliant. Let's see if I can find it right here. So it's about like 20 seconds, 30 seconds long, but the transition is really cool. So here it is. So it's major right here, and they have this little scale down. Here's chromatic scale. And it goes minor here, right back into the third theme. And you can hear that little top note playing the first theme. So I think that transition is really cool. It also incorporates like a chromatic scale or two in there, which I think sounds really good, especially in classical music when it's just kind of thrown in there. I think it sounds amazing, so I really liked that. Then the third theme is my absolute favorite part of the whole song. It's varied a little bit, so it's like a lot denser than theme one. So theme one kind of had like, there's points where it has one or two notes total played between both hands at a single time. It's homophonic in the first theme, but the chords aren't super thick. But in the third theme, the variation of theme one, it's super duper dense. So there's like 7 or 8 notes at a time being played, and they're played like quickly next to each other, so it sounds like almost pedal point, but the chords are always changing, so it's not pedal point exactly. And then this one is played in forte, so it's super loud, and the first theme is played in piano, so it's supposed to be softer. And this has a lot of like crescendos and scales all over the place, but you can still hear the theme as like the very top note. And it's so emotional. And when you're like really listening, you can hear like some struggle that Chopin was trying to produce while he would put some major chords and then some minor chords in there, like giving you false hope kind of. Then there's some dissonance that gets resolved into consonance and then stays minor though. It's brilliant. So we're going to listen to like 1.5 minutes of it, but it's worth it. It's so good. there's some dissonance right there, and then it resolves itself right here. But it stays minor, it doesn't resolve to major. And it could end there, but he doesn't stop. He goes through this whole tone scale sound. And then he ends with this coda, which is 3 chords. So anyway, that's the end of the Nocturne. This is my favorite song that Chopin ever wrote. And I want to just touch on the kind of, it's not a coda per se, but it's kind of the last 3 chords. There was a point in there towards the end, a few measures before he finishes the song, that he could have turned it major after he hit a dissonant chord and then did a whole tone scale. He could have ended major, but he chose the end minor, which is like my favorite part about this song because it's not like a happy ending that everyone wanted, but it's an ending. So it doesn't like leave us guessing, like we know it's the end, which I love. Anyway, so that's Nocturne Opus 48 number 1 in C minor by Frederich Chopin.